With me this evening is my wife Debbie, my longtime friend Miss Ruth Russell, and also her husband, the Reverend Roger Russell. There's never been a stronger need for God in our country than there is at this point in our history. Yet today, less and less of God is mentioned in our schools and in our courthouses and in our government. The very thing that God gave Moses to establish a society among his people is what's lacking in our country today. Read a story about Brad and Louise, two Christians who were trying to be good a Christian as they could, and but they only made it to church 2 times a year. One of those times they were at church, and as they were leaving, the pastor caught them as they were leaving, and the pastor said, "You know, it sure would be nice, Brother Brad, to see you come to church more often." And Brother Brad said, "Well, you know, Pastor, I'd love to come to church more often, but with my job and my family and everything that goes on, I just don't have time." And but you know, we do try to keep the 10 Commandments. And so, well, the pastor said, "That's nice." And along then, his wife Louise spoke up and said, "Yeah, I keep 6 of them, and Brad keeps the other 4. You know, God established the 10 Commandments thousands of years ago so that people could not only learn the character of God, but also know the danger of sinning. You know, a society without law and order is a very dangerous thing. I remember as a kid, when I went into church, and especially when I was going even into school, I remember seeing a placard on the wall of the 10 Commandments, and you know, it really stuck into my heart. And even today, I remember seeing that placard and what it stood for, and you know, and what it stands for even today. Part of the reason that the 10 Commandments have been taken out of institutions today, I believe, is because we as Christians have sit idly by while our opponents have been, you know, been out busy. I want to share some startling facts with you about our country. You know, taking God out of our nation, putting idols before our country or before God, and thirdly, you know, people today know more about television than they do about God and the Bible. Never in our history of this great nation has there been such a great divide over the Creator and His laws. Based on interviews from the Pew Forum, Americans 18 years and older, 28% of Americans, adults, 28% of American adults have left faith in which they were raised or have no religion at all. In other words, 28% of Americans have left the religion they were raised on or have no religion at all. You know, the Bible talks about in the latter days, 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 4 talks about in the latter days how that people will no longer, well, in fact it reads, "and will turn away from listening to the truth and will wander off into myths." You know, so Timothy was saying that in the latter days that people will turn away from the truth, they'll turn away from the Bible. And you know, if you look around today, that's what we see. The very first commandment that God gave was there to be no gods before Him. The gods that God was talking about in those days were handmade gods, but idol could be anything that we put before God. You know, it could be our job, our spouse, our family. It can be anything, our children, and you know, so it can be anything that we put before God. And you know, that's not just an American problem either. I read in a magazine the other day that the average British adult is awake 15 hours and 45 minutes a day, and of that 15 hours and 45 minutes, 45% of their time is either spent on the TV, the telephone, or the computer. So 45% of their time, half their time, is spent on some kind of electronic. A poll in a recent Bible Gateway blog, 52% of those who responded said they read the Bible 5 to 30 minutes a day, and that is among Christian people. Americans can tell you more about TV culture than they can about the Bible. 74% of Americans can name all three Stooges, Larry, Moe, and Curly. 35% of Americans can recall the names of all 6 of the Brady kids, and yet only 14% can accurately name the 10 Commandments. So it's time, we took our country back, and we put God first, and we teach our kids who God is and why we're here. And it's up to us as people of God in this great country to take our country back, and to take it back for our fathers who gave up their life and who gave up their heart and soul for each of us. And let's don't be like this couple who went to church on twice a year. Let's be like honor God with what He's given each of us.